And to all the listeners, मेरी जो चैनल है फौजी टॉक्स लेफ्टिनेंट कमांडर विजय नायर, प्लीज सब्सक्राइब करें और ज्यादा से ज्यादा देखें so that the reach is to many people. So today we have one of my seniors, uh, Major Sunil Shetty sir, and आर्मी के बारे में तो हम बात करेंगे सर. ही इज एन एंटरप्रेन्योर नाउ. ही इज मेंटर टू मेनी स्टार्टअप्स. एंड व्हाट इंस्पायर्ड मी सर का प्रोफाइल जब प्रणय ने बताया, ही सर इज बिट डिफरेंट बिकॉज सर ऐसे कंट्री में एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप एंड ही एस्टैब्लिशेस इन दैट कंट्री वेयर हमें लगता है कि कुछ नहीं होगा बिकॉज ऑफ द वॉर एंड द सिचुएशन क्रिएटेड देयर. दैट इज अफगानिस्तान, यू नेम, सूडान, इराक, कहीं पे. तो जानेंगे सर से बहुत कुछ बिकॉज all of us somewhere have that entrepreneurial streak. And abhi ka jo generation hai sir, everyone wants to be into startups and into entrepreneurship. Gone are those days jahan typically log naukri karte the. And I know a lot of Fauji sir who are about to come out of the armed forces, who's doing various courses, IIMs वगैरह में जो 6 months का आर्मी चलाती है, आर्मी नेवी एयरफोर्स. And most of them want to be an entrepreneur. So the discussion would be beautiful, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Sunil Shetty, sir. And Shetty से मेरा special connection है because my wife is a Shetty, sir. So, so that is the introduction. So, Jain sir, welcome on my channel, sir.
Jai Hind, Commander Bijay Nair, and also Pranay, thank you very much for making this happen. And बिल्कुल सही कहा कि talking to another Fauji is always a different world. एक फौजी समझ सकता है इस बारे में, क्योंकि हम लोग जब एक दूसरे से बात करते हैं तो बहुत कुछ आता है. कोर्स में कोर्सेज क्या किधर किधर पोस्टिंग रहा, जो कि एक मैं काफी लोगों की बात कहता हूँ कि it's all armed forces is the only organization जहां हम जब मिलते हैं, चाहे जो भी हो, आप शायद पहली बार मिल रहे हैं, इमीडिएट मतलब 30 सेकंड के अंदर में एक कनेक्ट बन जाता है. या तो कोई कोर्स निकल के आता है, या कोई कोर्समेट, कोई सीनियर, कोई जूनियर, या किसी के साथ में कोई कोर्स किया हो, कुछ ना कुछ कनेक्ट जरूर, मतलब वो ताना बाना में कुछ ना कुछ एक मिलता है, जोड़ देता है. और फिर हम बात करें, और अगर कुछ नहीं तो गहराई तो निकल ही जाते हैं. और here now it is also about taking it beyond. So yes, thank you very much for hosting me on this show. Looking forward to taking this forward. Yeah.
So my first question, sir, जो मैं सारा we will cover in 2 sections. पहला तो फौज वाला section, and then वो तो बहुत beautiful होगा ही sir. And the second section would be to more about the entrepreneurial journey. I'm really interested in that part also very much because कहीं ना कहीं sir आपसे सीखने मिलेगा वहाँ पर. So my first question, sir, how was that decision to join the forces, sir? Was it बचपन से था या कोई इंस्पिरेशन, या इट जस्ट हैपेंड? ये 3-4 चीजें होती हैं फौज ज्वाइन करने के पीछे. तो आपका क्या मोटिवेशन रहा सर टू ज्वाइन दी फोर्सेस?
So frankly, I think I was born to join the forces.
क्या बात सर.
मुझे नहीं लगता कि अगर मैं फौजी नहीं होता तो शायद सिविल वर्ल्ड में I wouldn't have been able to do जो मैंने आज तक किया है. Whatever I achieved, whatever, I give all the credit to the armed forces, right? How did I know what got me into it? Basically, I come from the armed forces background, right? My father is ex-Air Force, who recently passed away, and my Nanaji comes from army. So those levels of Fauji's are there, and it so happens that from 62 war onwards till 71, and then Kargil, myself, we have contributed in all the wars. Like my dad was in 71, 65, my Nanaji was in 62. So it is running in. So I grew up hearing all the wartime stories. In fact, in one of my projects that I submitted, I'll come to that later, for journalism, was a collection of war reporting from 71 war, which my dad had patiently collected from every newspaper. He had cut the clippings and stored it. And one fine day when I was in my, I think, degree and working on doing something, and I said, wow, I had seen those cuttings, I'll use that. So I submitted that as a reporting. So you can imagine the kind of connect to being in the armed forces to journalism. It's very natural. The flow has been very natural. So how did I got in? Is primarily because I grew up hearing stories of 1971 war, 65 war, 62 war. Nanaji said, dad said. Then my mother also, my mother was one of the few families during 71 war who didn't want to leave the cantonment. She was in the cantonment and she was like, I'm going to be here. So I was 1 year old. So born in 70, I was 1 year old and my mom never left the place. And my dad, comes from Met department and he was, you understand Met, every flight going out, the making the report. So I heard so many stories, 71 war stories, 65. So it was a very naturally growing up on that, diet of war and armed forces. Add to that, I had gone to Kendra Vidyalaya. So my school was inside an Air Force station. What I mean by that is, मेरे classroom से बाहर अगर मैं देखता, तो I would see airmen walking up and down, morning drill sometimes, and that station is still there, though the school has moved out. Okay, the Kendra Vidyalaya Begumpet has moved out. So Begumpet is again one of the important bases, right? Stations for Air Force pilots. So I did my all my schooling there. So it was very natural growing up, hearing these stories, and around me all those Faujis, right? So it was very natural. So the way I did was after I finished my 10+2, when I got into graduation, I took NCC. Basically, my dad went and took me, got me into NCC, and I got into Air Wing. It was very natural for me to go, tilt towards Air Wing because dad was in Air Force. So होता है ना हर young लड़के का होता है. अभी तो now girls, I would say. हमारे time में they were only men pilots, so male pilots. So कि fighter pilot बनेंगे. So I went on to do my C certificate from Marandra Air Squadron, where also had the opportunity of doing gliding there, about 120 sorties, and as part of the air wing thing. And I had got a 50 hours of flying scholarship from the state government, then Andhra Pradesh government, but which we couldn't use because those days, limited number of airports, which meant you would go up to the flying club and keep waiting the whole day. You wouldn't get a single sortie because commercial airlines would occupy most of the space. So again, I was from a science background, so I had to make a choice, in the final year, कि practical classes miss करूं या flying miss करूं. And I said, what, pass तो होना है, जो भी बनना है, pilot बनने से पहले pass तो होना है. So I might well as give up on this. So very reluctantly, with a heavy heart, I had to give up on that 50 hours. Could never do it. But yes, I had cleared the mandatory radio telephonic exam. होता जो commercial pilots भी करते हैं, RTA. So me and my friend, we went to different parts of the country. Delhi, Calcutta, Mumbai, as part of the process to appear in the exam and pass the exam. In fact, the instructor who taught me on radio telephony exam, RTA, is a good friend. Even now we are. He's a very chief pilot at Indigo right now. He used to be at Jet Airways. So the journey has been that. And apart from that, while I was in the NCC, I represented the state for the RD parade, RDC camp, and I had the good fortune of being the best cadet from Andhra Pradesh state, where I won the gold medal way back in 88, 89 batch. And then as part of it, I was, I was sent as, youth exchange program candidate to RDC to represent the state. And there again, got a good fortune to march on the Rajpath. It was, how difficult it is to be in the contingent in the first place, right? And in the first file. So that was, all of that adding up, marching on the Rajpath, being, though I didn't go as part of, I was not selected as a youth exchange program cadet, but then I did represent there. And, so that was the other, grand culmination to the graduation where got to march on Rajpath.
Perfect. And then now, coming to the after graduation, then that moment, sir.
So when it came to graduation, you see, when I finished my graduation, as I said, there was a year lost for me in terms of, when I finished my graduation in 91, I was trying to make a call on where do I go with Army, Air Force. I did try a couple of times going to the Air Force SSB. As again I said, probably I was not cut out for that thing. I was very clear. Okay, I need to go for army. So I wrote my exam, and then so there is there is a 6 months period. It takes almost a year by the time you give your exam. You get an SSB and you go in, right? During that period, I actually joined. I joined a Russian classes. I started doing from a center called there's an institute here called CFIL. It's the Government of India's Center for English and Foreign Language. It's renamed now. So from CFIL, I started doing Russian. I'll tell you a story behind that too. So I started doing Russian, and then I joined journalism. There was a day course. So it was a full-time course, right? It was a post-graduation. So it was called those days. The post-graduation was in two parts from Osmania University. Again, through you had to write a exam, come in the top 25, and then you get a seat because the total seats were 25. So I wrote this exam and I got into post-graduation doing bachelor's in communication journalism. These days now they've clubbed a BCJ and MCJ together into one course. But those days it used to be BCJ and then you do MCJ. So I joined BCJ because I was waiting for my exam, written exam, and then SSB. So I said, might well do something. But journalism somehow kind of was attracting me, right? And I joined journalism and I immediately took to it as fish takes to water. I love the fact of camera, going out reporting. There are many stories. I'll probably leave it for now that I did there, and I also completed my Russian. So why Russian? I remember as a child listening to interview of Rakesh Sharma.
Yes, sir.
Astronaut, our heroes, right? And during the interview, somewhere I recall him saying that one of the challenges they faced was of Russian language, right? Because all our instruments are written and marked on Russian. Mm-hmm. And he said, if I had only known Russian before, probably it would have been much easier. And somewhere in my mind, I think I was in 8th grade, if I'm correct, 84. And I said, I will learn Russian because जब मैं pilot बनूंगा और जब मैं astronaut बनूंगा, 8th grader, right? कि जब मैं pilot बनूंगा, Air Force में fighter pilot बनूंगा, उसके बाद जब मैं when I become an astronaut, ये एक काम पूरा हो चुका होगा कि I would have learned Russian. So I joined 91. I joined the classes. And I did the Russian. I passed out with a certificate in Russian language at the end of 92. And the same time, I finished my journalism. And it so happened that my SSB came in and I got call for joining the training at OTA. And I couldn't write my final exam. In my life, I had to do a second time. I had to take a call, whether this or this. And then I said, okay, you know what? Army to join karna, journalism mein baad mein aake bhi kar lunga. And then I left journalism. And as luck would have it, I had actually completed all the other mandatory requirements for appearing in exam, which was submitting projects, theses, all of that. That's where I said I had submitted my dad's 71 war clippings as one of the projects as part of my journalism course. So I didn't appear in the exam. I just went, joined the OTA. After commissioning, I'll just fast forward. Later in 95, actually, I took leave and came and wrote my journalism exams. And I completed my degree then. So from 92, I completed in 95 BCJ journalism from Osmania.
Great, sir. So how is the experience in OTA, sir? I think Gaurav sir is your coursemate, sir, Major Gaurav Arya.
Yes.
And so, I think Colonel Ankita, Lieutenant Colonel Ankita is also, she would have been your coursemate then.
Yes, she's from the second batch. So yeah.
Ankita Srivastav.
Yes. She's my coursemate, and also Major Gaurav is my
coursemate. And because the academy story. So your OTA days, one thing which you still remember, I'm sure many things you would be remembering, but one incident or some funny incident, yeah, kuch panga wala time which you remember. So how was that time in OTA, sir?
Well, see, there are quite, as you said, quite a few instances. But then one of the things, as I said again, connecting back to my dad, when he's in NCC, when he was in NCC, he was a parade commander, and he always took the pride in the word of command that he would, he was known for. There is a parade ground in Hyderabad, and he would always say whenever we would pass by. I remember I heard that story from him. He must have repeated that multiple times, many times. Every time we would pass by parade ground, he would say, उस जगह से अगर मैं बोलता तो up to here people would hear. He took pride in that. And somewhere deep inside, I wanted that. I should do that. Meet up to my dad's. Whatever my dad did, I should do that. So it so happened that when I joined the OTA, first year, first term was भाग दौड़ में निकल गया, right? You don't even get your grid, as they all say, north lost रहता है कि क्या कर रहे हो आप, पता नहीं होता, right? And being first officer from the family, I had no pinks to take with. You know what pinks are, right? To take with कि ये करना है, right? मजा कर. And I had no concept of how these appointments are made in given in the academy. So I had no idea. मेरा ये था कि मैंने फौजी ऑफिसर बनना है. उसके बाद में I'll give you another story that I had about Abdul Amir, PVC, right? That's from my school days. That's one of the things I forgot to tell you in my, what was the other thing that helped motivated me. So maybe if you want, I'll do it later, or I can kind of continue. But then, so I was very clear. मेरा ये था कि फौज ज्वाइन करना है. And thereafter, the first posting I wanted was on LOC. This is my dream. I was thinking कि मुझे मैं ऐसे पलटन में I should go where my first posting is LOC, nothing less, right? So first term grid loss, I have no idea. Things are done, and as I said, drill I always took a pride. I cleared all my drills. Everything was perfect. Second term, and I remember, Subedar Gurbachan Singh was there, our drill instructor. And I went up to him and I said, I saw one day he was carrying the sword, right? So I went up to him and I said, Saab, mujhe sword drill karna hai. And he looked at me and said, Jisi tera merit mein rank kitna hai? I was like, how does that matter? Right? How does that matter? Aap mere drill karwa lijiye, and my drill is good with rifle and all. And sword drill sikha do. He said, no, you got to be in certain merit, and then you get to do this, you got to carry the sword, because it's all appointment based, right? And was the first time I was like, oh, bloody hell. I don't even know what my standings are, right? So I remember I went to my DS and I asked him, and Captain Kello was our company commander and platoon commander. And he said, at the current rate you will not get it. And I was like, damn, even if I graduate, even if I commission from here without a sword, my dad, I will be disappointing my dad. That's not right. So that was the moment I decided कि नहीं, चाहे जो भी हो जाए, I have to clear, I have to pass out with a sword in my hand. That's it. And as luck would have it, God was kind. I picked up in every front, wherever because I never paid attention in the first term as to, how do you, see, I was clearing everything. Physically I was fit. सारे में excellent आते हो. Physically everything was excellent, right? चाहे वो आपका 5 kilometer run हो, BPT हो, जो भी हो, everything was excellent. The only place I was not paying attention was my academics. कि ठीक है यार, चल रहा है, जो पास हो रहे हैं आप कर रहे हो, निकल जा रहे हो. But I realized that all of these things add up to, you being, reaching in a merit list. I remember, my merit was, I think if my memory was correct, I came in top 10, 20 when I passed out. And that was good enough for me to get my tabs and get a sword. Now, there is an interesting anecdote here. I always wanted, my mother always said that jo bhi hai, officer banna hai. Okay? Nothing below the shoulder. It has to be above shoulder, whatever you wear. Okay? That was one of the reasons why in NCC, I did not take a sergeant's rank. I said, no, I don't want. Okay? Same thing happened in academy, because I was supposed to wear first sergeant and then become the, under sergeant, right? I remember company commander, Major Chibba, he giving me that, and I said, I took it, but I never wore it. I remember, pura ek hafta I kept avoiding wearing it, and I never wore it. Okay, as luck would have it, it was towards the end, so nobody was paying attention to it, because these ranks, as you know, they come towards the appointments, they come towards the end, some of the appointments, right? And I never wore it. I was very clear. My mother said, on the shoulder, nothing on the, below the shoulder. And when I passed out, it was with a sword, junior under officer, JEO. And that was a pride moment, because when I came out of the drill, My dad, mom, my sister, they're part of the passing out parade. And I think I could. So there were two clear moments when my dad took very pride. I could see that he felt, he felt the pride. One was, when he saw me do the drill with a pass out with a sword. That was one. And second time when he was there at the investor ceremony when I got Sena Medal for gallantry, in the Northeast. Two of these moments I could see I can even now recall my dad's face. That he saw that yes, this boy did it. So yeah, that was my experience. I would say there were many experiences, but this is something very close to my heart.
Awesome, sir. Awesome. I mean, I can visualize whatever you are saying. Like being a Fauji, I can see that moment. Voila, amazing, sir. Amazing. And then the tenure happened, sir, and you were as desired. What was the first posting, sir? Because you want.
Oh, okay. So, my post again, as officers, you get to choose, which arm you want to go. I was very clear. I wanted to go to fighting arm. So my first choice was infantry, second was mech infantry, and third was artillery. Right. And in infantry, I wanted to only opt for hill troops. So I opted for Dogras, Gorkhas, and Commando. Now, conversation was on why. I said, yeah, man, I come from down south. I've lived all my life eating dosa, idli, and sambar. I don't want to go back into another place where I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of my life, right? And I wanted to be in a different place, And again, I think to a large extent, the probably one of the reasons I would say this is the stories you grow up with, right? The war histories you read, Ayo Gorkhali, and going there, slaughter, and all that stuff. Somehow, I'll tell you, I'll share this. My pastime during school, the thing that I used to play at home was I would line up pillows as if they were bunkers, and I would have a fake gun in my hand. I would just imagine Pakistan troops on the other side and kind of keep shooting them. And guess I would never die in that. I would never die. I would always go and overrun the situation because 7th grade May, there was this story of Abdul Hamid, right? PVC, how he destroys Pakistani tanks. So I grew up on that story, and I idolized him all the time. And again, I think Shah Rukh Khan ka dialogue hai na ki agar aap kuch really you want something, the whole universe conspires to make it happen, right?
That's
so
one of
in my dream
favorite dialogues, sir.
Yes, very famous. Very true, very true. And somewhere I wanted to be on an RCL gun. I didn't know those days what it was called, in 7th, 8th, 9th class. But I remember sitting on a pillow as if I'm sitting on, because of Abdul Hamid ka, agar aapne wo dekha hoga, Paramveer Chakra series, usme dikhaya hoga, right? So that was ingrained in my mind. And I was like always, कि मुझे तो उस पे बैठना है और fire करना है, right? And I have to destroy as many tanks possible, kill as many Pakistanis as possible. As a kid, you grow up with all these stories, and that's what you're dreaming of, right? And so that made very clear that I had to go for infantry. I was very clear on that. And I got infantry. I got Dogras, 12 Dogras. And it so happens that my unit was posted in Northeast on Burma border, right? And the other thing, again, I think it's also personality, right? Like we had these 12 days of casual leave immediately after commissioning. I and my course mate, who's from 12, we both, I told him, let's go to, you're supposed to have this tour, familiarization tour, go to your troops areas and get familiarized with them. So I said, let's use this time for going to them and meeting them, right? So I ended up at our center, Dogra Center in Faizabad. And that actually led to another thing later, much later. I'll tell you, and that has a connection to journalism. So I ended up, went to Faizabad, then went to Himachal, spent a good about 8-9 days. Initial 5-6 days I'd spent at home. Then I went to Faizabad, went to Himachal, and then landed up at, at the unit. And believe me, the day I landed up at the unit, it was evening 5 o'clock. And my tough adjutant said, there's an operation, do you want to go? I said, yes. I was hoping to do something, right? And I said, yes. And I don't want to name him right now. He's still serving and in a very high position. But then he said, and this is very, very important. Okay, and I've learned a lot of things from him. And he said, though you are as an officer, you're going there, but you will be under command a JCO because you don't have experience of operations. You have, so do not try to go there and say, I'm an officer, I'm going to pass. So listen to instructions, understand what he's saying, because he's got almost 15 years of CIA operations experience. And he was also one of the JCOs who was part of the one of the openings of who did openings for Siachen. So he had, he came with a lot of, I remember Naib Subedar Chetri. So he said, I will not tell him that you're going to be under his command, but you are under his command. I said, yeah, if that is good for me, right? And guess what? He put me on a stop, the adjutant, that I'll create a stop somewhere. And it's, as luck would have it, there was we were doing a search, a coordinate search operation in a village, close to Burma border. And action happened, but mere paas mein, right? So as luck would have it, but then it was not a big action, just a couple of rounds fired, and then all these people were grabbed, and then live, they were all grabbed live, and then thing went on. But then the baptism was by fire. I land up in the evening, around 5:30, and same night, I think it was about 1 a.m. we left for the operation, because early hours, how the operations are. You go early hours, lay the cordon, and do the search. We are ready for the search at about 5 o'clock, 5:30 with the sunrise. Being east, early, early sunrise.
Early sunrise.
So that is how I got, welcomed to the into the armed forces.
Amazing, sir. Amazing. I mean, I'm just thinking about the power of visualization. Like whatever you visualize, कि ऐसे होना है, ये आर्म में जाना है, ऐसे होगा, LOC जाना है. That's the power of visualization. So what's the story behind the gallantry, sir? SM.
So as I said, one of the things that I was motivated by when I was there was explore the place, because that was the first time I was in Northeast, right? In fact, to tell you the truth, it is quite embarrassing at some times that the day I opened up my eyes, I mean, the next day morning of the operation I'm talking about, because it was late night, right? When reached there, sunset, and I'm waking up to this, stop that we are creating, and I see mountains and jungle, and it's beautiful, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know Northeast was so beautiful, right? And I still feel, one of the places which we don't talk about in India, is Northeast, and we should. And I believe, there should be more people going from schools and colleges to Northeast than to the same destination we all know about, Kerala or Goa or Bangalore or Gujarat. No, we should try. Why don't we explore Northeast? So, I promised myself that I'm going to explore more. Okay. And as luck would have it, those days in the 90s, mid 90s, there was a huge crunch of officers, on the field areas. So imagine, as a second lieutenant, those days, second lieutenant rank was still there. As a second lieutenant, within, I think, a month or two, I don't recall exactly what, but I think within 2 or 3 months, my company was deployed where I was the only officer. So you're as good as a company commander as a second lieutenant, right? So I took that opportunity to do, because we were supposed to dominate the area. I took the opportunity to walk around, do the area domination, do the patrolling, lay ambush at night. And those days, Northeast was quite hot, Manipur, Nagaland area. So, we kept doing that. And I remember it was during the first year, it so happened that, second year, it so happened that I had come home for a leave. And I was going back after casual leave, for a short leave. I think my sister's engagement was there, so I'd come for a week, and then I was going back. It so happened in Imphal, I missed the convoy. Okay, and then in the officers' mess, and I knew now I missed this. I'm stuck for a week at the at the rear. So I started asking, inquiring, and then at the officers' mess, I came to know, brigade mess, officer mess, the rear officer mess, that brigadier was there, who sector commander, whose convoy was there. It would be going next day up. So I said, okay, I walked up to again, I'm a second lieutenant, okay. So I walked up to the brigadier's office, residence in the mess, and I requested if I could join him, in his convoy next day, because one of my companies was posted at Ukrul town, and he said, "Yeah, why not?" And I remember him making a statement. He said, "Very rare you get to see a second lieutenant these days." And as luck would have it, next day morning, I jumped into a 1-ton which was there right in front, and he was in a jonga. Sorry, an ambassador, black ambassador. Those days, ambassadors were still there in prevalent, right? So a black jonga, and the convoy left. There is a point, halfway point, where you take a break. So I don't recall what is it called, but some point. It's basically you go up on top of the hill and then you come down. So it takes close to 3 hours going up, and then again another 2.5 hours going down. At that, me and the brigadier sir was having Brigadier Satish. We were having a chat, and he was asking me various questions. One of the things I've been is talk, right? And I said, "Sir, I don't know who plans these operations. All these int reports they come. They don't know what they're talking about." And I'm sure he would have been taken aback, and he said, "Acha." And frankly, tell you the truth, I didn't know a BM does it, right? And there is approval of the commander. Only then these things go out as a potential operation areas, right? I had no idea. I'm a 1 year old in the service. I'm a second lieutenant, and he said, "Why do you say that?" And I went on to explain to him that I still remember there was an operation, we had got a report called Launch Operation Evening Star, grid reference so-and-so, expected camp and all that. And I, just before going leave, I took my team, there was nothing. And I said, this was in the liner side of one of my LMG posts. If there was a camp there, I would have seen it. Because I remember Major General Mahiwal, who was my company commander then. Then he was major, he had come from Angola. He was a toughie, and he was like, "You will do Santri duty along with the Santris," right? He made me do Santri duty during that time. So I knew my post very well. And I was like, if it was here, then I would know it. Why didn't I know it? Right? Or I would have seen it. And this is what I told the brigade commander, right? And it so happened that he said, "Okay, come into my car. Let's, I want to talk to you more." And we started talking, and then at some stage he asked me, "Okay, if you have to do an operation, how would you do it? If you were to allow?" And again, Sunil Shetty being Sunil Shetty with all those pillow fights and, visualizing, I told him, I would have a hand-picked small team, not a 30, 40 member team, which is like you announce your arrival, much ahead, and, go in plain clothes, not carry the regular uniform, and small weapons, not necessarily big. If those days, if you recall, carbines and SLRs were still in service. NSAs had not yet come in. Right? So, I said, none of these, not carry those big RLs, because by the time you're climbing up a thing, it's over. Right? So he said, "Okay." And it so happened our conversation ended when we reached Ukrul town. He dropped me off there, and I still remember then Major Malhotra sir was there, who retired as a colonel, and he told him, "Ask your CEO to speak to me." And and I remember reaction of Malhotra sir. He was like, "Kya kiya tune?" I'm like, "I don't know." He asked me questions. I answered him. Next day morning, it so happened that my CEO from the battalion headquarters linked up halfway through. I jumped into the car, and he asked me, "Kya bola tune commander ko?" And I was like, well, now I thought there was some problem. कि कुछ तो बोल दिया मैंने. Yeah. But I'll tell you one more thing. In various posts that we had, in the initial couple of years of our posting, my unit's posting, I was only 1 year old. We had moved to multiple locations. Okay, we were just moving. We were not in one static location. So in one of the locations where I was with the commanding officer, then Colonel PK Saini sir, me and him used to go out for a walk. Okay, just around the area, village, and see what's happening. So I used to talk to him. So he knew that I was free-flowing guy with all the, who would talk. So that was a blessing in disguise, because CEO knew if agar isne kuch bola hai to, he wouldn't just say things like that, right? So that day we ended up at the brigade headquarters. There was some other briefing also to happen. As luck would have it, there were other sector CEOs had come in. There was 22 sector and 20 sector. So the commanding officers from there were there, and I was outside, and I had no idea what was going on inside. When the whole meeting finished, And lunchtime, I still remember, sector commander calling me to a side in front of everybody and said, "Okay, this is Second Lieutenant Sunil Shetty." And I was like, "Okay, what's happening here?" And then I came to know later. And again, there's another connect here, okay, uh, which got connected from here to Afghanistan, okay, and that's very interesting. So I this is my belief, right? Life is all dots, okay, floating dots. You have to make sense of them and connect them. That's what it is. If you see whatever I'm narrating, there is a connect between dots.
Exactly.
Right? Each dot is an experience, or that strong desire that you want to do or achieve, and those get connected. Please mark this. Please, your life is all about connecting the dots.
Exactly.
These dots are your experiences or those strong desires you have, as Shah Rukh Khan said, right? And then you connect them. So there's a connect happens from here to Afghanistan. I'll cover that later. So the event, after the meeting, we came back to our battalion headquarters, and then immediately what happened was, I came to know that the sector commander wanted me to launch an operation the way I wanted it, but obviously CEO and the adjutant and others were part of it in organizing the event, and based on a very solid report that had come in. And as luck would have it, I was given a small team instead of a big team, lightly equipped, and the whole idea was to go into the given area and lay a siege. Firstly, was to lay a siege, see, observe, and trap, and that's what happened. We were in jungle, I think, for about 3 nights, and on the 2 nights, on the third morning, very early morning, we had the encounter. And where for the first time, a very senior leader from the NSC and Moiva group was caught live with many incriminatory documents, that proved that they were running a parallel government in the Northeast. Weapons, we had a little bit of exchange of fire, but luckily, the biggest takeaway for me was that all my team was alive after the event. But the biggest thing was yet to come. So the operation happened, in the early hours, but it so happened that we couldn't have come back because one of the parties that was supposed to come in from Charlie company got fired upon, so they were held back. And then I was told that you need to take right position so that you can come back with the troop. It so happened that the moment at that point of time, nobody knew who this gentleman was, whom we caught. Okay. But the moment we caught them, one of the, the message went out because firing had happened. Probably the villagers knew that he was supposed to be coming there. And the message went out. And, by the time we winded up everything, it was late evening, right? And the message went out, and about 250 people, from the villages, women and men and children, they encircled us. We were on a knoll. We had taken a position on a knoll, and they encircled us, right? And there were nowhere to go. And they were like, "You release these people. You can't go without that." And they had come with mashals and their mashatis and all of that. And and it was becoming quite violent. The crowd was becoming violent. But I could see that out of these 200 plus people, majority of them were villagers who probably were forcefully brought in, right? Because you understand how these things work, right?
Exactly.
And the trouble creators are only in the first few, probably 50 odd of them, the sympathizers or the overground workers, all of that. But they were carrying sticks and local bhalas and all of that. So, and I said, so whatever I could shout from here, from the knoll in the front position to them and saying, "Don't cross the line," and then if you cross the line, then I'll be forced to take action. Otherwise, we are here and we'll go out of the village as soon as our extraction party comes. We are out. But I realized that they were not interested in that. So what I did was, as a chance, I left my weapon with my guys against the wishes of my troops. They were like, "Sir, don't do it." And I said, "There's no other way but to go to them and talk to them in person." Right? So I went up to that. I could also see there was a village church pastor, in the group. So I went to him directly and I spoke to him, and I said, you want them, the only way I can do it is there is an authority which clears that I can give you. But I am not leaving this place 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, as long as there is no, there is no trouble from your end to us. We will not open fire, we will not do any of that, provided you don't assault us. Okay. So let's keep that. You want to sit here, be my guest. You can be laying the siege as long as you want to. And we will hold our position. So let's have that position. So my headquarters already knew, my CEO was talking to me, and because it was dark, we had no idea where we were stuck. Okay. And the important part was that there were civilians here. And obviously, my CEO and everybody else was asking me, or cautioning me against any civilian casualty. You understand how important that is, to the extent that they said, if it comes to a situation where you have to give up on these guys to save civilians, please go ahead and do it. But we cannot have civilian casualties on our hand. For me, more important, also the important part was I can't have casualty of my guys, my troops. The last thing you want that, right? It's no point catching one terrorist if it has to, at the cost of 10 of your guys dead.
Exactly.
Right? We would rather see them dead than our guys, right? So I had a very good int guy with my, in my team, and he said, "Sab, ek route nikal sakta hai piche se, but we have to take a risk of climbing down." Okay, so I said, find the route. Let's take that and go back. But then the important part was to get rid of these guys from us, because they would not see us go away, right? So then again, in an hour's time, I went back to them and I said, it is good. There is only one road from this village, I know, to go out. So why don't you be on the village road than, here? Because if we are eyeball to eyeball, there is a possibility of anything going wrong. So he took the bait. He said, okay, we are going to stay, we'll be at the edge and then we'll wait there. And then we gave another 30 minutes. I and two of my guys went back. Very good. And we said, okay, now is the time to go back. So we got all these guys, tied them up very well. And we, went down from that road. It was a steep road, went down, and then we just vanished from there. And we ran the whole night. I think we started moving around, if I remember correctly, about 10 o'clock. And next day morning at about 6, we reached our closest company location. Okay. And I can tell you, all of that night when we were running with our backpacks, you can understand, backpacks, your rifle, and you have in between, you have your own, the guys you caught with all the documents, you have to save all of that, and you're running because you can't hold in one place, right? The faster you move back, the better it is. I remembered every minute of my academy days, all those BPTs, all those race backs. I'm like, this is what they train you for. Because it's not about distance. It's not about time. It's about mental strength. That as an officer, you are able to match. See, I come from down south, not that we are weak, but the North Indian troops are bloody studying, right? Growing up in villages, they are toughies, and of all the places I've chosen a mountain troop, and they are naturally, their lungs are designed to run, walk the mountains, climb the mountains, and here I am, running with them. That is where I realized, why the training in the armed forces or the academies in your NCC is so very important. It is not that koi ragda maar, right? The word ragda is so negative in the academy days, but it's not ragda. Even if your seniors are doing that to you, in some ways they're building you mentally. It is these moments that they come, that's where your mental strength comes up, right? So we ran the whole night and we reached Delta Company, where then Major Dodamani was there, who retired as Colonel Dodamani, and he received us. And then from there, by the time my unit already had sent vehicles there, we got all of these guys, took some rest, and then reached battle headquarters. And voila, when we reached battle headquarters, when my CEO saw the gentleman, he said, wow, this guy is actually the head of, he was self-styled Captain Samson Jojo, who was the head of North Konkan region, whole of North Konkan region. So the first time somebody had actually caught somebody, very big in that region. And I remember we used to send these reports, NTR, nothing to report. And I remember in my drive, that ambassador car, commander asking me, why do we have so many NTRs? Nothing to report. And I said, yes, sir, we are, we don't plan our operations well. That was my, that's how the whole conversation started, right? So here was an operation where that evening, 12 Dogras was able to send out, a report that said so many militants caught, this was the recovery and this is the successfully operation done. That's what led to, me getting a gallantry award for Sena Medal gallantry. And it was, in Jabalpur. And I remember I was flown to, Dimapur to apprise the corps commander then, where I did the presentation as to what the event happened and how did it happen. And I was still of the opinion that we need to do more of these events, more of these small operations than doing a big, huge, cordoning of a huge area. And then, but int has to be strong. And during the initial report, during the investor ceremony, I remember. I don't recall the name now, but Army commander talking to my dad and he said, very proud of your son. Because I was second lieutenant still, and I was in my second year of my service, right? So very early on, right? Very, very early on. I remember my first ACR was written after the investor ceremony, right? So my dad was very proud. I could feel that, I could see that in his eyes, on his face. So yeah, for me, it was not that I wanted, I did an operation for gallantry, but all my life I lived thinking of doing operations, right? And here was the moment that I did it.
Amazing, sir. Amazing. I can, like as I said earlier, I can visualize the entire operation and then, yeah, so, जो भी हमें सुनेंगे, for your information, gallantry award, वो young, stage of life, rank or time में मिलना is it's not impossible but very rare in the Fauj. And here sir is an example of how that thought of वो जब जा रहे थे ब्रिगेडियर साहब के साथ कॉन्वॉय में, छोटी सी कॉन्वॉय में पहले, and whatever he spoke and whatever he executed exactly, that's how it happened, later. So amazing, sir. Amazing to listen that journey, sir. And then uske baad, sir, you didn't choose to continue with the forces, sir? Uske baad, like.
So when we finished our Northeast tenure, and as luck would have it again, the dot, right? We were my Paltan was moved to Faizabad, which is our center, right? And in the center, Dogra Scouts was to be presented with colors. Okay, and an event was happening, and the Colonel Regiment then, General Bedi was visiting us, visiting the center for the preparations. And as luck would have it, because we were the only Dogra unit in the brigade, he was visiting us also, and he took the opportunity to talk to each and every officer, in the Paltan, and I was the last one. So as I went in, so his question was, he looked at me, obviously Sena Medal, so people are talking to you, senior officers want to talk to you also. And he said, anything you want to add? I said, yes, sir, 2 points. Again. So I'm a big believer. If you genuinely believe in something, you got to talk about it. Okay? Don't talk about it just to impress someone. Don't say things just because you want to flaunt your knowledge. If you genuinely have something where you are prepared to do, you are prepared to take a call, only then talk about it. Otherwise, talking about things where you don't mean anything, or you don't want to invest yourself into it, then don't talk about it. There's no point. ऐसे तो हम लोग WhatsApp पे बहुत सारे groups में लगे रहते हैं लोग कि इंडिया को ये कर देना चाहिए, वो कर देना चाहिए. आप बताओ आप क्या करोगे, correct? So, taking us one step back again, when I came to Dogra Center, as part of, as I told you, after commissioning, I had visited Dogra Center. I wanted to know about my unit. I wanted to know what my unit did. So I was told that you go to the motivational hall, and there is a, there you'd have the Dogra book history. And I took the book and I read. I started going through it. Sare Paltan ke, they were, 10, 20 pages. When it came to 12 Dogra, there was just one page. And it was not updated. And unit has been, has been there for a while. And I was like, why there is nothing about my unit, right? And I saw that the Dogra regimental history was not updated, for good about 10, 15 years now, more than 15 years. And I was like, this needs to be updated. Again, the journalism in me, right? The journalist in me, isko update hona hai. Anyway, the thought was left there. And when we came back and when General Bedi asked me, is there anything? I said, yes, sir, two things. He said, what? I said, sir, there is a need to update Dogra regimental history. Nobody has updated after for the last so many years. He said, oh, that's a good point. And I said, and I in the same breath, I said, I've done journalism, so I want to volunteer myself to write the book, the second edition of it. There you go. He said, what's the next one? I said, sir, I want to lead Dogra regiment on Rajpath. Now, there's a story for this, and this is very important for all those young out there. There's a message in this story, why I wanted to lead the contingent on Rajpath. As I told you, in NCC, I was in the first file, did the drill. In 50 years of my life, there have been only few times where I suffered self-doubt, right? Where I can actually count the number of times. I've been extremely confident about things and I've gone and done it, right? And one of the moment was when they were selecting contingent commanders. I don't know what got onto me. I just thought I was not fit enough for that job. And I didn't compete in it. And every moment of that, I lived in regret. Ki at least compete to karta, try to karta. So I had the best I could do was first file mein aap march kar rahe. And that haunted me all my, from 89 Rajpath to, the 94 where I was in center. And I said, I want to command, lead Dogra center. And as my luck would, bad luck, wo saal nahi tha, because those years, they used to give alternate years was the thing. So they said, okay, following year, your name would go. But just to finish this loop, I ended up commanding, leading my battalion in Allahabad for 26th January parade in the same year. Because I was told, okay, go and do it. So I took my baton and did that. And coming back to the book was there, and he said, do it. And as luck would have it, then the center, Brigadier Kundra, center commandant, my own CEO, then all of these got together and gave me the opportunity to bring out the book. Finally, it was published, but the only downside was then it was decided to be published in Hindi. And I wanted a Hindi and an English version, but they published only Hindi version. So if you ever get a hand of the book, you'll still see Captain Sunil Shetty Sena Medal in the book. So the second edition of the book was published, under my leadership, if I could call that. So that is where this happened. And then what led me leaving happened. And then during one of the Ghatak competition preparations, I injured myself and severely injured myself, and I had to go multiple surgeries to my knee, and ended up becoming a category. And this was just before Kargil. And I remember the first Kargil, news break happening. I was in Command Hospital, Lucknow, after the surgery to my knee. And, I was listening to this story there. And I was, I'm here and there is the action. And I this is not what I was meant for, right? And I remember that my unit moved, from Faizabad was moved. And the moment I got discharged, when you go through surgeries, you go on medical leave, right?
Correct.
I actually showed up at my unit in Puch. And my CEO was like, I'm with the cast, right? I showed up there, and I still remember having, I'll not name him, but having a, you are supposed to be on medical leave. I said, I don't care. I'm supposed to be here when the Paltan needs me, my troops need me. And he said, you're on medical leave and things can go. I said, wherever you want me to sign, that I'm volunteering, I'm here on volunteer. I'll sign it, but I want to be here. But it so happened that, I was sent to 9 Dogras, which was on DCB then, because Kargil is at peak, right? So I was sent there. That kind of, it kind of created a bitter taste in my mouth, I said, just because I can understand that, with as a low medical officer, category officer, you can't do so many things. But I knew what I was able or what I could do, so I wanted to be with my troops. And here I was sent to, another Paltan to 9 Dogras, and I was there. Again, Kargil was still on, right? So I was there, and positions were there, if you remember, troops were along the line of control and international border. And when I went to 9, the first thing I did was call up the CEO and say, I want to come to the front, not at the rear. Where I was given option. And I was, no, I want to be in the front, not at the rear. And I went to the front. I was put in Delta company and I was there. There was another youngster with me. And I, whatever had to be done by me, I did. And I think I still remember whether it was patrolling, whatever we had to do. I did it with my, whatever leg situation was. I did all that. And then 2000 New Year, the Millennium New Year, I ushered in a tent, overlooking. I still remember, on the TV, you could see those New Year celebrations in Australia, where the first New Year happens. That is where I was asking myself. I said, what if my low medical category does not get upgraded? I've already done 2 surgeries. What if I have to be a football where I move from peace station to peace station? Because you remember, please mark this, as an infantry officer, if you're not with your troops during field tenures and you only show up in peace stations, my Sena medal performance would have only taken me so far with my troops, right? Because how do you earn their respect? How do you earn their trust? If you're there with them, if you're climbing mountains with them, if you're jumping across, rivers with them, swimming across rivers, streams with them, only when you're doing the tough things. And I was asking myself, what if I get handed over from like a baton passed on to another unit in peace stations? Now, so that's my other personality of my side. I do not want to be a parasite. If I'm there somewhere, I need to contribute 100%. In my dictionary, there is nothing like 99.99% contribution. There is nothing like 101 also. If I'm contributing 100%, or I am not contributing. That's it. It's not like, कि मैं इतना करूंगा और इतना नहीं करूंगा. If you're there, you're there. If you're not there, you're not there. That's my personality. That's how I look at things. So I took a call. You know what? I should take a call. I should go out. And it so happened that the whole of 2000, next few months, I participated in various competitions, landing competition for the Paltan, did all of that. And then finally, in February, I think I put up my papers. There was a lot of pushback from my CEO, the CEO of 9 Dogras, who also offered, you want to switch to 9, I will do it. As why would you not, continue? And he kept telling me this low medical category doesn't, will not affect you. If you want to be in infantry battalion, you can be. There's nothing stops. But I was asking, yes, I will be in infantry battalion. I was asking myself, I might continue to be an infantry battalion, but will I be only a peace station to peace station officer? That's not me. So I put up my paper and I took, I left the army. The irony is, going back to our academy days, the last day of the, when you're filling up your choice of arms, right? I remember one of the DS walked in and said, because as a sort of officer, after 5 years, you can opt for PC. Permanent commission, PC. So he asked, how many of you will opt for PC? By God, I'll tell you, there were, I think, 2 or 3 hands in the auditorium, and one was mine. And here the irony is, I had decided to quit and go away. I remember some of my course mates later on, how did you leave? Again, as you made a mention, Sena medal and all that, and then you decide to go. It requires some amount of, conviction that no. And I will tell you, I did not know that I will go out and do something else. What I knew was that I would be first thing, I would be a drain on the organization, that they will find me places to accommodate. And secondly, I would live next whatever years I'm in the armed forces a disgruntled soul. And that is not good for the organization.
Very true, sir.
Because you know that you've been in the armed forces, right?
Very true, sir.
And a person like me who's, want to be in the thick of the things, on the sidelines, I won't be the 12th man. I couldn't have been the 12th man. the cricket terminology, right? So, but I had made up what I would do. As I always say, two things that gives me adrenal rush. One is the weapon, the other is the camera, because with both you get to shoot, right? So I came back, joined MCJ in my university, which I didn't complete, because I then decided. So it so happened that I got married after I left the army. I got married to somebody from the armed forces, somebody who was connected to the armed forces. Anita. Anita is, comes from a Fauji family again. Her dad was in the Air Force, who was also part of, Abdul Kalam's team, part of the many leading projects under him. And, I got married to Anita. It was a love marriage. I got married to her. She comes from Punjab. I'm down south, Mangalore. She's from Punjab, Hoshiarpur. Okay. And then that during that period, I also did. So I joined journalism, and my wife said, if you're so keen on being in journalism, why don't you go to London and do journalism? Because that's the Makkah of journalism, right? Media. So that was the thought. But then my first passport that I had made way back in during the NCC days for going for youth exchange program had expired. And that's another struggle that we had to. I remember on my birthday, those days, there was none of these today's programs, right, where you could go online and apply.
True.
In Chennai, passport and visa, two different challenge. I remember for the UK visa, me and my wife, we stood in a line the whole night outside the consulate in Chennai, and we still couldn't get in.
Oh,
yeah, because those days, thousands of people would come, for the visa applications, and that was a completely different. That was my birthday. I still remember that was my birthday. I was on, whole night on, outside the consulate. So yeah, that's how I came out of the army, and then I went to journalism. But before I got to journalism, I did 1 year. I started entrepreneur. I did an entrepreneurship, right? I started selling assembled computers in Hyderabad.
Okay.
I'll not go into details of it, but for 1 full year, I was running a computer. I was assembling computers and selling hardware. And my sister, and I was also working with my sister who was running a BPO way back in 2000, in the year 2000, right? We did it for 1 full year. And I learned a lot. Again, that computer knowledge got connected in Afghanistan. That's another story.
Amazing, sir. Amazing. So thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your journey, and may you grow and grow, sir. We will catch up sometime.